Shimano controls 80% of the global group set market. Campagnolo controls less than 3%. Every business measure says the fight is over. The numbers say one thing. Shimano won. But here is the part nobody talks about. Riders who chose Campagnolo are not upset about losing. They are not switching. Looking at a Shimano-equipped bike, they feel nothing close to envy. That disconnect between market reality and rider loyalty is not irrational. It is actually the most honest thing in cycling, and by the end of this video you will understand exactly why. Which side are you on? Shimano or Campagnolo? Drop it in the comments right now. Understanding this debate means going back. Not to a product launch. Not to a press release. To a mountain. November 1927. A 26-year-old Italian amateur rider named Tullio Campagnolo is racing over a high alpine pass in the Dolomites. Temperature has dropped below freezing. Snow is coming off the peaks. His fingers are completely numb. Changing gears back then meant stopping completely. Every rider did it the same way. Loosen the wing nuts on either side of the hub, flip the rear wheel, tighten everything back up, keep moving. Tullio could not do it. His hands would not work. Standing on that mountain, losing a race he had been leading, he was unable to operate his own bicycle because the weather had taken his fingers from him. He finished the race. That moment stayed with him permanently. 4 years later, Tullio invented the quick-release skewer. A single mechanism letting riders remove and flip a wheel in seconds. No tools. No wing nuts. No frozen fingers on a mountain pass. Nearly every road bike built today still carries that invention. Campagnolo did not begin as a company chasing profit. One man solving a problem that had personally humiliated him. That was the origin. It shaped everything the brand became. Obsessive, Italian, emotional, completely uninterested in compromise. Shimano's story runs differently. Shozaburo Shimano founded his company in Osaka in 1921, 6 years before Tullio ever stepped onto that mountain. No personal problem drove him. A manufacturer identifying an opportunity did. Japan's post-war economy needed precision parts. Bicycles needed components. Shimano built a factory and got to work. Growth came through discipline, not drama. By the 1950s, Shimano was exporting components across Asia. Entering the European market, Campagnolo's home territory, happened by the 1970s, with components that cost significantly less and performed nearly as well. Campagnolo responded the way a craftsman always responds to a factory. They made their product better. Shimano responded the way a manufacturer always responds to a craftsman. They made their product cheaper. Both strategies worked. For a while. What that origin difference created, though, is something nobody fully explains. Buying Campagnolo is not just buying components. Riders are buying into a lineage, a specific idea about what cycling is supposed to feel like. Every time a hand reaches down and shifts with a Campagnolo lever, there is a tactile quality, a mechanical feedback, that the brand has preserved across decades of development on purpose. Shimano optimized for function. Campagnolo optimized for feeling. Neither choice is wrong. Both choices are not the same either. That distinction, function versus feeling, is what this entire debate is actually about. By the early 1980s, Campagnolo was the undisputed ruler of serious road cycling. Tour de France. Giro d'Italia. Almost every professional peloton in the world was running Italian components. The name itself had become shorthand for quality. Knowing cycling meant knowing Campagnolo. Riding Campagnolo meant people noticed. Shimano was present. Competitive. Improving. Not dominant. Then 1984 changed everything. Indexed shifting arrived. A system Shimano called SIS, Shimano Index System. Before this, every rider shifted by feel. Move the lever, listen to the chain, adjust by instinct. Learning took time. Mastering it took years. Indexed shifting removed all of that. Click once. One gear. Every time. Perfectly. Simple as it sounds, the engineering behind consistent, repeatable gear changes across an entire drivetrain required years of development and extremely tight manufacturing tolerances. Shimano had the factory infrastructure to deliver it at scale. Campagnolo did not respond immediately. That pause cost them more than anyone understood at the time. Cycling was changing beneath everyone's feet, growing beyond its European base. American riders were entering the Tour de France. Fresh cyclists were coming into the market, people who had never learned to shift by feel, people who wanted performance without the learning curve. Indexed shifting was built for exactly those riders. Rather than creating a better product for existing cyclists, Shimano had built the perfect product for the next generation, people who had not yet formed loyalty to anyone. Campagnolo introduced their own indexed system in 1992. 8 years later. By that point, an entire generation had learned to shift on Shimano. Their hands knew one brand. Their instincts were built around one system. Switching felt wrong, not because Campagnolo's engineering was inferior, but because familiarity carries its own loyalty that no specification sheet can measure. That is the moment the market split permanently. Before moving forward, if this kind of deep dive cycling history is useful to you, go ahead and subscribe. Every video on this channel follows the same format. No filler, no padding, just the parts of the story that actually matter. Back to 1992. Campagnolo's index system was, by most technical assessments, exceptional, smooth, precise. Experienced riders described the lever action consistently, and the word they always reached for was the same one: satisfying. Not faster, not more precise. Satisfying. Shimano had already won the conversation by then. Not by making something better, by arriving first, in the right market at the right moment, with a product aimed at riders who did not yet exist when the race began. On the surface, that looks like a cycling story. Underneath, it is something else entirely. A business story. And the business story gets far more complicated from here. Here is what the cycling press never fully explains. Shimano's dominance is not primarily a product story. Distribution built it. By the late 1990s, Shimano had constructed something very few component manufacturers in any industry have ever achieved. Structural unavoidability. Not through advertising. Not through sponsorship. Through the supply chain itself. Here is how it worked. Bicycle manufacturers, the companies building complete bikes and selling them through shops, were approached with something Campagnolo could not match. Consistent supply. Predictable pricing. Components available at every tier, from entry-level to professional, all engineered to work together, all sourced from a single relationship. Working with Shimano meant a bike manufacturer could spec an entire product line, from the cheapest commuter to the most expensive race machine, without calling another supplier. Not a small convenience. An operational advantage that changes how an entire business is run. Campagnolo made a deliberate choice to stay at the top of the market. Entry-level components were never part of their plan. Chasing the commuter segment held no interest. Protecting their identity as a premium brand meant refusing to compete below a certain price point. Principled decision. Strategic catastrophe. Only existing at the top of a market creates one unavoidable problem. New riders never meet you. Almost every cyclist starts on a mid-range bike. That bike comes with Shimano. Their first gear change is a Shimano gear change. Their first mechanical problem is a Shimano problem they learn to solve. Their entire early relationship with bicycle components forms around one brand. By the time serious money is ready to be spent on an upgrade, Shimano is not a choice being considered. It is the default being returned to. Campagnolo becomes something heard about. Something older riders mention. Something worth trying one day for a different experience. Different is not where most money gets spent. Familiar is where most money gets spent. Shimano understood this earlier than anyone else in the room. Another layer runs even deeper, though. Every component in the Shimano ecosystem, chain, cassette, crankset, derailleurs, brake levers, is engineered to work optimally with every other Shimano component. Mixing in a competitor's part degrades performance. Sometimes slightly. Sometimes significantly. Accidental engineering did not create that outcome. Intentional architecture did. Closed ecosystem is the technical term. Lock-in is the business term. The result is a real cost, financial and mechanical, every time a rider considers switching brands. Campagnolo built the same ecosystem logic. Only at the top. Shimano built it everywhere. That asymmetry, one brand embedded at every level of the market, one brand present only at the peak, explains more about the current state of cycling than any component comparison ever could. At this point, the components are almost beside the point. Almost. Because what happens when a rider finally does spend serious money and puts their hands on a Campagnolo group set for the first time? That part of the story is something the market share numbers cannot explain. Strip away the history. Set aside supply chains, distribution deals, and market share numbers. Put a rider on a bike. That is where this debate actually lives. Buried under every brand argument, every forum post, every comment section on this exact topic is a truth that almost nobody states cleanly. Both group sets work exceptionally well. A rider on current Shimano Dura-Ace and a rider on current Campagnolo Super Record are both running components that represent decades of engineering refinement. Neither one is fighting their equipment. Neither one carries a mechanical disadvantage onto the road. Performance is not the difference. Character is. Shimano shifts with a precision that feels engineered from the ground up. Every click is positive. Every gear change is immediate. No ambiguity exists in the system. Lever pushed, chain moved, job done. Confidence inspiring in the way a well-built machine is always confidence inspiring. You stop thinking about it. You just ride. For most riders, that is exactly what they want. Campagnolo moves differently. Longer lever throw. Richer mechanical feedback. Experienced riders describe the action with remarkable consistency across decades of reviews, forum posts, and conversations, and the word they reach for, almost without exception, is satisfying. Not faster. Not more clinical. Satisfying. Pressing a button versus pulling a trigger. Both achieve the result, but one carries more feeling through the process. Here is where honesty has to go somewhere uncomfortable. That feeling costs money. Campagnolo's entry point into their serious group set range sits significantly above Shimano's equivalent tier. For a rider building their first quality road bike, that gap is not trivial. Closing it means choosing between components and wheels. Between group sets and a better frame. Between a brand name and hundreds of additional miles of actual riding. Choosing Campagnolo at that stage requires a specific kind of rider. Someone for whom the experience of equipment is part of why they ride, someone who has already decided cycling is not just transport or fitness but something closer to a daily practice. Shimano serves everyone else. Everyone else is most people. Campagnolo loyalists resist this framing. Shimano riders rarely think about it at all. Both reactions make complete sense. Winning the market happened because Shimano understood what the market actually was. Not a community of passionate riders who cared deeply about component feel, but a much larger group wanting reliable, affordable, invisible performance. Components that did their job and stayed out of the way. Campagnolo never lost their smaller, passionate group. That community still belongs to them completely. Competing for the larger one stopped a long time ago, whether by choice, by oversight, or by a philosophy that simply refused to compromise identity for volume. Wisdom or surrender depends entirely on what you believe a component brand is supposed to be. A tool built for every rider. Or an instrument built for a specific one. Neither answer is wrong. Only one of them built a billion-dollar business. Shimano or Campagnolo. The answer was never sitting inside the components. Every part of this debate leads back to one question: what kind of rider are you? Someone who wants the machine to disappear beneath them? Or someone who wants to feel every single part of it working? Drop your answer below. Next video is already waiting.